Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. It's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, A Box of No Lid. A channel I'm creating not just to bring the awareness of the lived reality trauma, removal and adoption trauma creates, foster care and so forth, but I also want to bring what I've learned over my own personal experiences and the many, many years as a practitioner and an advocate in these areas. Now, this video is going to have some triggering aspects in it, in the controversial, well, it's not controversial as such, but in the confronting is a better word, the confronting realities that many adoptees face. And I want it kept in that context and understanding and valued as such, as I'm raising this out of trying to bridge the gap of understanding of what so many adoptees have to just personally bury or deal with. And what I'm talking about is, in utero, everything our mother goes through crosses the placenta. It crosses into our body and being as we are formed and are developing within her. Throughout that process, we develop a unique understanding and a bond with our biological mother, the mother we're growing inside of. We recognize and understand her voice. We feel what she feels. Everything she eats, we absorb. If she eats food that makes her sick, we will be sick. If we eat food that she enjoys, we'll enjoy. We are in sync because our nervous system is developing and learning from hers. If she feels safe, we'll feel safe. If she feels insecure, we feel insecure. If she's anxious and terrified, we're anxious and terrified. Everything our mother goes through is the roadmap that our systems are built upon. It teaches our nervous system, as we're developing in the womb, how to function, creating those parameters of highs and lows and so forth and so forth. This is why co-regulation works in the ways of healing trauma. We need another person's nervous system to support teaching ours how to re-regulate or self-regulate. We develop this in the womb. But when you are looking at the cases of a child slated for removal at birth, when you're looking at the cases of a child being relinquished at birth through various reasons, and this is where this controversial nature, this part of this video comes in, or the confronting, I should say, part of this video comes in. When you look at some of the reasons why children are given up through being conceived through rape, being conceived through incest, being conceived through forceful means, how is a child supposed to reconcile coming from that base when we find out? Now in America, the anti-abortion laws, so forth and so forth, they will force a woman to carry to term, even if her abuser raped her. And quite often the rapist is her father or an uncle, a blood relative. And that child is born from that incestuous genetic reality and all the implications that come with that. I personally know a couple of them that come from that base. And I see firsthand the struggles they have with the knowledge that they have come from that base. Because of the medical consequences, they have to explain it to a doctor as why there are these inherited difficulties. Coming from that base of rape, coming from that base of abuse, growing up and developing inside a woman, our mother, who feels that turmoil of, I have an infant growing inside me, but they represent the rapist that abused me, and hating that child, that crosses the placenta. And that is something people need to understand. Being around this stuff, being an advocate in this world of adoption for so many years, I've come across it all. in the thousands of circumstances and people that I've met in organized, as part of inquiries and of federal apologies and state apologies and meetings and conferences and so forth and so forth, you see it all. And I've seen mothers who regret the decisions that they made to relinquish, but because they made a decision to, some because of their careers or degrees, or they just believe that they were not able to, that I cannot connect to my child that is growing inside me affects the child growing inside them, because it all crosses the placenta. The fear and the anxiety, the loathing that the mother feels for herself and the child developing crosses the placenta. And all of this shapes the nervous system of that developing child in how to respond and the parameters of response. This is why it cannot be ignored. This is not a cognitive thing. This has got nothing to do with mental health. This is the development of a person learning how to be within a person that, as I said, in some instances hates that infant that's growing inside them. How does a child reconcile that when they find that out? How do they make it right that their father is an abuser and that their mother hates them? Now society goes, well, you're adopted out or you're in long-term foster care. They are your parents. You're them. You are not your past. But we are. All the instructions that we come from are from our past. And we have to reconcile that into a balance. And the majority of us, nearly all of us, do that on our own because no one wants to understand it. And everybody wants us to be seen as the adopted family's kids, not our biological past. Now, for me personally, I'm Vietnam warrior. My biological father was a 3-tour veteran. My mother was a nurse. I was conceived in war. I'm an R&R baby. I grew up terrified every night, dreaming first-person dreams of a war I never fought in. I tried to explain that to my adoptive parents because that was a threat to me being their biological child, even though I wasn't. It was one of the aspects that destroyed my connection to them. I had to reconcile those dreams by myself, and they are vivid first-person dreams killing people. I thought that they were just interpretations until I sat in America with elders, Vietnam veterans, at a gathering. And some of these guys were AIM members, American Indian Movement members. And we were talking, and one of them was explaining to me about how children remember the dreams of their parents. And I started to raise one, and he asked me, describe one to me. So I did. Excuse me. I did the step-by-step of everything I remembered of 3 trails into this one small village with a small little church at the junction point. And being, two American squads were coming in, different paths, being ambushed and, all hell breaking loose. And a nun getting killed in the crossfire by me with a shotgun. He went white. He put his head down because he was there. He actually was in combat with my father. Didn't remember my father because my father was in another squad, but he was there. As bizarre as a reality of 2 complete strangers meeting at a gathering in the middle of the desert, he was there. And I believed him because of his response. And also, I had no reason not to. But I remembered, and that shaped my childhood. It also added to the heightened state of my shutdown and the dorsal vagal shutdown, which is why I accepted and didn't fight off all the layers of abuse that was happening around me constantly, from the bullying to the assaults by people that were, from the church and everything that was happening. It all created this state, but I still come from that base. And part of my path out of a dorsal vagal shutdown state is you have to move through fight or flight, as I've mentioned in the video previous to this one. I was terrified of coming out of my withdrawal, my survival, my shutdown state because of what those dreams showed me I was capable of. And the times when I have forced myself or been forced out of a shutdown state where I've had no choice, I blacked out. The amount of adrenaline I had to push through so much, and I blacked out. And that terrifies me. A large part of that terror come from what I inherited from my father. And that is why this stuff cannot be ignored. I know loads of other adoptees. I know loads of other kids that have come from domestic violent backgrounds, and they're terrified of becoming their father. So much so that they end up stepping into chronic addiction and chronic alcoholism and end up becoming their father, even if they had nothing to do with him, especially when you're looking at the world of adoption. This is why this information needs to come with the child that is placed for adoption. Our history of where we come from and who our parents, biological parents are, needs to be part of the process of adoption. Not in what's deemed as an open adoption now, because it's a load of crap. And the majority of open adoptions are not open adoptions. The adopted parents disappear and the kids have no contact with biological family. Or they do everything they can to block it, or make all the obstacles as a result of it. But I mean the understanding of the person, their experiences, and the mother and her experiences, the father and his experiences, needs to be part of the package, and the adopted parents need to value that information. So as the kid grows up, not age appropriate, from the beginning, understanding, not giving him the blunt force of you came from this, but paying attention and learning to read posture and body language and mannerisms and all this, of when these things are bothering them, and giving them the skill sets to cope and process and understand, not repress, to make sense of it, to be aware of the options that they have to not become their past, teaching the skill sets to process it so they can finally step through and resolve it within themselves. This video is a difficult one, not only because of my own personal experiences, because I know how hard hitting it can be when you come from that place of that past. When you were conceived from the processes that I mentioned previously. Understand you are not alone. Understand your thoughts are not wrong, and understand that none of it was your fault. Truly get that none of it was your fault. Understand the challenge that you have to physically process through the emotions that your perpetrator, father or mother, didn't. Whatever crossed the placenta, you have to process through it. You cannot avoid it. It has to be worked through. And my advice is, don't do it alone. Find somebody that genuinely understands you and get them to help you through co-regulation to process through. Develop the skill sets to articulate it and explain it, as I've said in several previous videos. To get through this, we need to develop the ways to articulate what we're feeling in a way that another person can understand. When we know and we get that aha moment that they understand what we're saying, we're in sync, and their nervous system can help ours process that through. Everything that was dumped into us from our biological family, we need to move through if we're going to get to the other side of it. And we can do that with people that genuinely understand and genuinely care. Hence making this video in the hope that it is understood and valued. I love you guys' comments and feedback. Please be mindful, please be safe, and I'll see you all next time.